Right, 8 minutes past 8, you will have heard a lot about the bad smell coming from the controversial Walleys Quarry landfill site in Silverdale over the last couple of years. People living locally fed up with the stink coming into their homes and have previously staged protests outside the gates. That led to the company in charge of the site to take legal action and get 26 people banned from protesting. Campaigners were fighting that ruling in court, but decided to stop because of the expensive legal fees. I'll be talking to one of them in just a second about what they're going to do next. First, though, producer Jack's got more details.
The last 3 weeks have been horrific. I think it's worse now than it was this time last year.
That's Silverdale woman Becky Curry speaking to us in January. Her young son Matthew is suffering terribly because of the gas coming from the quarry. She's trying to get the European Court of Human Rights to do something about it.
Hazardous waste, including arsenic, rat poison and zinc, has been tipped at a Newcastle-under-Lyme landfill.
February, and Newcastle's Conservative MP Aaron Bell alleges in Parliament rat poison and other waste has been illegally dumped. Walleys Quarry Limited say those allegations are false and there's no evidence to support them. And March was a month of yet more protest.
Protesters have been back at Walleys Quarry in Newcastle.
You only need to use the nose test and you can tell that it is absolutely putrid down here.
In April, Simon, who lives nearby, tied himself to the landfill's gates in protest.
Well, I've glued myself with super glue and tied myself with chains, and it's basically because no one's listening.
And the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, was asked about the smell in Parliament.
If it is necessary to take further action to remove these malodorous vapours, Mr. Speaker, then we will.
And now, in May, despite over £10,000 being raised by the local community, 26 protesters have ended their fights against an injunction banning them from protesting at the gates because of potentially huge legal bills.
For each of the 26 named defendants, that's 40 grand each. That would be ruinous to a lot of us, and we can't compete with that. We're just a small community. We're not a multi-million pound business, and so this is the practical solution to this.
So that's Dr. Mick Salt at the end there, one of those 26 people affected by this injunction. We'll be speaking to him in just a second. First, though, Joanne Gallagher is BBC Radio Stoke Staffordshire political reporter and was in court yesterday. What more have you got for us, Jo? Good morning.
Morning, Lee. Well, let's remind us why Walleys Quarry bosses wanted this injunction, and that was because they say they were losing money because of the protesters preventing drivers from getting onto their yard. Now, they also claimed that some of their employees felt intimidated by the actions of some of the demonstrators. So in court yesterday, lawyers acting on behalf of Red Industries, who own the quarry, said it wasn't their intention to stop peaceful protests. They merely want to stop trespassing at Walleys and the company's HQ in Newcastle, and they want protection for drivers to be able to enter the tip freely. Now, they've all agreed to this, the company and the 26 Stop the Stink campaigners, who felt they really had no choice but to end their legal battle. It was really taking a toll on their mental health, and there was this fear of mounting legal costs and damages that may be awarded against them. Now, what this action means for the protesters is, well, they can still protest at the lay-by opposite or on nearby roads. They can still peacefully demonstrate, and that will remain the case until December 2026, when the quarry stops operating and that injunction ends. So all this stops them from doing, Lee, is going on to the site of the landfill. Peaceful protest can continue should they wish to do so.
All right, Joanne, for now, thank you. Mick Salt's with us, one of the 26 people affected. Morning, Mick.
Good morning.
Does this make any difference to you at all?
Not to me personally, because I had no intention of blocking the gates or going onto their site. But I think it's more of a sort of a. It was a moral obligation to fight this if we could, because under Articles 10 and Articles 11, you are allowed to cause a proportional disruption compared to the magnitude of what the issue is. And can I just we start off with just talking talk about things like smell and stink. But can I read an extract from the Court of Appeal regarding this? Because it's more than that. It says in the Court of Appeal, dealing first with Article 2 of the Convention, there is no appeal against the finding that the levels of hydrogen sulfide presented a real and immediate risk to life, in that, unless addressed, the levels would lead to a shortening of the life expectancy of Matthew. This is a harm. It's not just a smell or a stink, it's a harm.
You think people are kind of playing down what's actually happening here because of the impact it's having on people all across the borough, and in particularly the person you just mentioned there, young Matthew, is the person at the heart of the story.
And any child, particularly a child with underlying health issues. So, there's this argument of proportionality that you can cause some disruption. I mean, in this particular instance, we're not intending to, but that was the argument to be explored.
How bad is the smell at the moment?
There's nothing at all where I live, but I'm a mile away, so it might be worse for those closest to the epicentre.
Yeah, we've been hearing so much about this recently, and I remember when we did the show from there in September, it was horrific. What difference will this make to the way you campaign against the landfill, this injunction?
Well, actually, I think it's probably going to be quite an advantage, because quite a few of the protesters have been suffering ill health effects from spending time protesting at the quarry. And as Paul Lealman of Walleys Quarry rightly says, protesters and 44-ton HGVs don't mix. And given the aggressive attitude of some of the drivers, I mean, I actually had a police complaint against one of them who eventually apologised, but eventually someone was going to get hurt. So it's perhaps a blessing in disguise to some degree, but also it's forced us to be so much more creative. For instance, there's audits for the number of HGVs going into the site, and the number is significantly reduced when the Environment Agency's inspection officers are on the site compared to when they're not. Read into that what you will.
Yeah. Do you feel that when you look at the protests that have been taking place, some people may have been going a little bit too far here?
I think no. I think it was proportional to the attitude of the operators towards the public, because, for instance, I'm in a job where sort of confidentiality is very important, and their communications director accused me of sharing an in-confidence document, and it was a lie. I could prove it. So they've ramped up their assault on the community, and so proportionally the disruption of the protests increased to match that.
All right. We'll leave it there. Mick, for now, thank you very much. Dr. Mick Salt, one of the 26 people who've been affected by this injunction, which affects how people protest outside Walleys Quarry, where the smell, which has been coming from there for so long now, has been affecting the lives of so many people, and particularly young Matthew, who you heard Mick reference there, who's been at the heart of this story for some time. It is going to be one of those things that rumbles on, I'm sure. For now, though, Mick, thank you very much. To the roads we